Hot Corner Highlights proudly presents an interview with Dan Kelly, Chief Operating Officer at IFB Solutions. We hope you enjoyed this interview, and we also hope that you like, subscribe, and share for more great content. You may email the show at athotcorner@gmail.com. That's athotcorner@gmail.com. And now, here is Mike Mode.
Welcome everyone to another edition of Hot Corner Highlights. I'm Mike Mote. It's a pleasure to have you tuning in. However you're listening to this, we appreciate it very much. And if it's during the holiday season, we hope you're enjoying your holiday time for 2021. Want to remind you that we have a lot of information that's helpful, and we're asking for more and suggestions from you, the viewers of our channel, at our Assistive Technology Hot Corner page. If you found us for the first time, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. So hit that subscribe button and you will be alerted when new content is available. And so we appreciate you being here, and we're glad that you joined us today. We call this Hot Corner Highlights for a reason. We want to spotlight blind and low vision individuals who utilize technology to help them with their careers. And a gentleman who is joining me today has done quite a bit in his career. He is the COO of IFB Solutions, and that is the largest employer of blind and visually impaired people in the country. I'm speaking, of course, of Danny Kelly, a good friend of mine. I've had the pleasure of working alongside Dan at IFB now for 9+ years. And Danny, we thank you for coming on and being a part of our channel. Welcome to the channel, is I guess be the way to say to you, but we appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
So I want to talk about kind of what you do now, and then we'll kind of work our way back. But tell folks what COO does at IFB Solutions. What is your daily work involve for the most part?
Oh, well, whatever the boss tells me to do, right?
Right.
I've worked on a number of different things for IFB as COO, and then as Executive Vice President of Strategy and Programs for the organization as well. So we run, 3 manufacturing plants in Winston-Salem, Asheville, and North Carolina, and then the third one in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the primary focus of the business as COO was to make sure that we're getting products out the door on time to customers, and doing that efficiently and as cost effectively as possible, at the same time employing as many people who are blind as we could possibly do. So it is working, it's managing people. We had a team of 700 or so that were my responsibility at IFB to get all that done on a daily basis. So working, managing, supervising, guiding, strategizing on a daily basis with folks.
Danny, you are a unique individual for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest things that I think a lot of folks would like to hear about is your journey from being someone who had vision to someone who doesn't. And I know that is a condition that a lot of folks deal with for one reason or another. Yours happened to be retinitis pigmentosa, RP, which a lot of times results in someone who has it going totally blind. And that is a life-changing event. And I know that was tough it had to be tough for you, because it basically, you had to learn how to do things a different way over a period of time. Talk to me about that part of it. I know you were young when that happened, but I'm certain that was a challenging time for you and your family.
This for me, looking back, is really a story of mentors and a system that actually worked, Mike, and did what it was supposed to do. So as you mentioned, I went totally blind down to what I have now, light perception, by about age 13. At age 8 and 9, I was reading, large print on a CCTV, and it went down to light perception, like I said, by age 13. My father was also blind, and so was my son Jack, and so was my grandfather. So we have 4 generations, our family, 50-50 chance of getting this hereditary inherited eye disease. But as I was saying, the system worked. We knew the prognosis for my eye condition was total blindness. I got the short straw because it happened early. RP usually doesn't affect people till later. But the school system that I was a part of, I grew up in Minnesota, did a wonderful job making sure that in kindergarten, even though I didn't need it yet, they were teaching me Braille. I grew up in an age where technology was changing fast, and they made a smooth transition, honestly, from a electric typewriter in 6th grade to Bex on the Apple IIe to DOS to Windows 3.1.
Oh, wow.
And we're going back now, right? And beyond. But really, between the teachers for the visually impaired, and I went to a magnet technology school in junior high, so the focus was always to use computers and such on your daily activities. Like I said, the system worked for me. That plus just amazing mentorship from coaches and leaders and my parents along the way, who never said, oh, poor Dan, he can't take the trash out, or poor Dan, he can't make the bed because he's blind. The expectations for me and my brother, who was sighted, were exactly the same in terms of being a responsible member of the family and a responsible citizen.
Well, and I think, not to interject myself into this at all, but I think that's one of the things that's made me so successful, is that my mom and dad had 2 of us who were blind, 2 kids, my brother and I. And our expectation level was, if we were asked to go get the mail, then we went. We didn't say, well, I can't do that. We were just never told that we couldn't. We were told that we could, and we were allowed to go to mainstream public school. And we had amazing teachers that had the ability to teach, even though we were blind. They made adjustments along the way. And it sounds like to me that you had similar things going on in your childhood, where you were able to learn just like your peers were able to learn. You were able to interact with them and learn how to socialize. I think that's a big thing that's important when you're talking about bringing blind kids up to be as normal as any other kid, because they just can't see. That's the only difference. And not making that such a big deal to them, and then that way they really don't know that it's any different. And I think that from what you're saying, it sounds like what your parents were able to do, and your teachers as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, a couple things. We always talk about at work using people first language, right? So people who are blind, kids who are blind, whatever. But it's about the person first, and the blindness just happens to be something you're living with. And I think, beyond that, you're absolutely right. This again, good mentors, good. Well, yeah, I guess I'll just stop there and let you ask your next question. But there's always challenges along the way. There's no question. Things that are going to frustrate you. People are going to ask things about your disability that are going to drive you nuts or whatever. But I took that in stride, and would always rather answer a question about the blindness, even if they thought it was ridiculous, and try to actually put some education into a sarcastic question or whatever, than not. It was always a teaching moment.
That is one of the questions I was going to ask. I think a lot of times we do, as blind people, get asked a lot of questions that are simplistic, I guess what you would say. But I think you would agree with me, when you're asked those questions, you have a choice: either educate or maybe alienate someone who doesn't know. You may be the only blind person that they've ever come into contact with. How important do you think that is now? Has that importance level changed? I think since you were a young teenager going into your early adult life, I think it's even more important now than it's ever been, especially the work that you and I do, trying to get folks to take opportunities to hire someone who is indeed blind or low vision to do work for them in their company.
It hasn't changed at all for me, right?
Right.
I think I always go back, even when I'm in a large group of people at say a law office, giving a presentation on sensitivity to blindness or what have you. And I always start, you know what, guys, my favorite questions come from kindergarten to third graders. So I'm going to spell some of those out for you. You know, how do you get dressed in the morning, right? How do you, all those things, because they want to ask those questions. They're just, adults who are afraid that they're going to look stupid by asking it, but they don't have any idea how we even do those basic things. And so I ask the questions and give them some of those answers, because I know they want to know anyway. And then it usually frees them up to ask the questions that they want to ask. Mm-hmm. And my opinion is there's no right way, but that we should always try to answer them.
What are your biggest challenges, Danny, with going into your professional work life? What do you see as the biggest challenge for you from a technology standpoint? Where do you think we need the most help from where you sit?
So for me, I would say the jobs today that use technology regularly, some of the most challenging ones are those entry level positions. Getting that first job and getting the adaptations and accommodations to be able to do that job successfully are harder. Mike, you deal with some of this every day with
absolutely
our call center operators and everything like that, and the productivity and the volume and the quality that they have to get out is, what I struggle with the most, Mike, in my job are some of the basic activities, the larger strategic planning and discussions and relationship management and things that I have to do on a daily basis are done exactly the same way, whether you have writing emails and things like that are done the same way, whether you're blind or not. But approving expense reports, in the new ERP system that we just implemented, enterprise resource planning system, or just getting onto those basic planning tools that can take a sighted person seconds to do and not have to go through a learning curve at all. It's a huge learning curve for me. I just told you a few weeks ago, we have so many new systems at work that I had to put on my big boy pants again and go back to technology class, because it's moving beyond me, even at age 45. And if I don't go back to the classroom, I'm going to be a dinosaur.
I had this conversation with someone that you and I know very well. In fact, he's your boss. We won't name names, but he said this a few years ago. We were working on a consortium to talk about assistive technology. And he said, once we get this accessibility thing handled, we'll be good. I said, well, excuse me for saying, I said, this is a moving target and it's never going to be under control ever. Because as long as we live and we live in a sighted world, we all know that as blind people. And trust me, the sighted people don't want to live in a blind world, because things would be a whole lot different for them, not for us. But all kidding aside, I really believe that as long as the accessibility is a moving target, that means we're making progress in the right direction. And we must stay on that road and be willing to make the changes that are necessary in order to stay current, like you were talking about. Otherwise, we will get left behind. And that is a very real possibility if we don't have the ability to continue learning. And so, as you said, that's one of the things that I try to do with the way that I'm handling my responsibilities is to ensure that people have that ability, number one, and that people understand the importance of it. It's one of the reasons for our channel. It's one of the reasons why we do support group meetings that deal with assistive technology. We don't want people to be left behind. And I'm sure for you, given the level of responsibility that you have at IFB, technology is a huge help for what you're trying to get accomplished. And without it, I don't know where you'd be.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think if we don't use it, we're going to fall behind. If we don't self-advocate to both learn the systems that are in place, because you're not always going to get the one that's the most accessible, right? A company is going to decide to use platform A over platform B, or you may have to use both because a customer may require that, in a Zoom video call. I didn't want to use the word Zoom, but whatever, right? So
Sure.
Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, I'll use them all now, right? So
Right, exactly.
you got to learn them because who you're working with is likely to use, one of them or not the one that you want to use or whatever. So guess what? Just like everybody else, you got to learn all these different apps. And you're never going to force the world to conform to what you want. It's just not going to happen. So you got to get out there and get curious.
While we're on the subject, let's give Apple a little love FaceTime, because if we didn't, somebody would say, you left them out. Right. Got to give some equal.
I'm sure I missed one.
Yeah, exactly. There is GoToMeeting. And
WebEx, GoToMeeting.
Yeah, we'll throw them all out there. There's probably ones that I've never heard of that's out there, but I haven't used yet. But
it's like Kleenex versus tissue, right?
Exactly. Danny Kelly is our guest, folks, COO of IFB Solutions, and also helps with a lot of other things. And you've gotten involved in Danny and some other things as well in the last couple of years. You're now in charge of looking after our programs division, where that covers a lot of things like the student enrichment experience and things like that. How important is it to get parents involved and kids involved at a young age who are blind and educating them? Because a lot of folks may be listening to this, they have someone who's blind in their home, and maybe they're, very young, and they're trying to figure out what's the next step. I mean, I have a young kid in elementary school. What lies ahead? How important is it to get technology in their hands at an early age, in your opinion?
It's, besides getting out there and getting active and running or swimming or tandem biking, or just building your confidence and your ability to move and be active, it's the second most important thing that can be done for a kid. Build confidence first, build the skills needed to be successful later in life. And whatever version of success looks like for you or for your family member, whether that be employment, or whether that be a homemaker, or whether that be an adventurer, right? Whatever it is, you're going to need to have the technology skill sets to be able to make that version of success for you, and to be able to go out and get the job of choice and do what you want to do. And it starts early. Like I said, they were teaching me the basics of Braille, at 5 years old, and for my son who's 12, he's been on an iPad for school since third grade. He's been now in the last 2 years learning on a whatever laptop they gave him, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
All these tools. Just it starts early.
You mentioned you have two children, you're married, you've been able to enjoy the uh, the confidence part of life, as you say, with growing up. And not only did you accomplish so much in your professional life, but you also were a medal winner uh, in the Paralympics in 1992. So you were in swimming, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I
I
believe
was a
that's what you.
swimmer. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
How cool!
Barcelona. And
Yeah, that had to be a cool experience. And I you know, I don't want to be one of those people who ask crazy questions, but how was that for someone who was blind? Because by that time you were blind, you had to deal with those types of things and those types of challenges with coaches teaching you and different things like that. But tell people how that was for you and how that experience was being able to be a part of something like that, because that had to be a great experience and a life changing experience for you.
yeah, it was truly remarkable. What an honor and a privilege to be able to represent one's country on an international stage, right? In Barcelona and Atlanta and in Sydney, Australia. In 2000, having the prime minister of Australia at the time put a gold medal around your neck and then hear your national anthem on another country's soil, right? Just a tremendous experience and a great opportunity to connect with other individuals who are blind and other individuals of very differing abilities. At the Paralympic Games, 4,000 people, disabled from a variety of cultures running around the Paralympic Village. It was quite an experience. The guy with the cane or the guy in the wheelchair winning when you're riding down the sidewalk at each other?
Right,
I don't know the answer, but it only people with disabilities can make those kind of jokes, right? So
right, exactly. And even then,
then it can be dicey.
yeah, even then.
But it was just a remarkable experience. And again, just it comes to all of this is one-on-one, right? This is not policy, whatever your political views coming out of Washington, D.C. Certainly there's some of that with funding, but in the end, a person needs to get curious and get engaged and get involved. And there are people around that need to be able to help, support, and mentor, work with, socialize with that individual with a disability. And it takes a village, and it's all one-on-one. If there's anything I can advise, whether with technology or not, it's build your personal network of people around you.
You and I have worked with so many neat individuals in our careers. We've seen a lot of great people. We've seen a lot of great stories, especially at IFB. There's so many, and if we started talking, we'd be here till tomorrow, so we won't. But quite frankly, there's some incredible stories that you and I have experienced. But I've had the recent pleasure of getting a new person that is introduced himself to Braille at 6 years old, and now he wants to read. And I've introduced him to a Braille display, and his mom is just eager for him to learn because he's just soaking it in. And I tell you, the privilege is all mine. They're like, thank you, thank you, thank you. But I'm like, no, man, thank you for letting me do this, because this allows me to give back and pay it forward. And I would imagine that that's the same that you feel because of what you get to do on a regular basis. So to me, this is not a have to work. This is a get to work type job. And I would say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think this is the kind of job that is a mission driven job. And it gives you a lot of opportunity to give back and pay forward for other people that you come into contact with on a regular basis.
Yeah, I started my career at a small little employment agency in Minnesota, and talk about an amazing mentor, a gentleman who was running a business that fluctuated between 3 and 9 people, and decided to give a blind kid coming out of high school a chance to do interviews and recruitment sales calls. From what we affectionately call headhunters, right, or recruiting company.
Exactly.
I did that for 7 years, and I had the pleasure of placing people in the printing industry. I was hiring and placing graphic designers, Mike, and printing press operators and different visual jobs.
Yeah, let's mention Danny's blind and he's putting people to work. Graphic designers, okay?
Graphic design.
It can be done. It can be
Talking
done.
about programs, they show up at their portfolio and it's like, let's talk tech. We were talking technology even day one.
Wow,
when I was
that's awesome.
doing that job. But to be able to put that to work, those skills to work, now in the blindness business, right? Helping hundreds of people who are blind over a 20-year career find jobs and opportunities, and realizing that they have the same diverse interests and talents, that they want to be engineers and can be and are successful at it, and they want to run complex cutting equipment and can and are successful at it. And they want to be human resource professionals and salespeople and all the rest, call center operators, and we can help them take that first step in their journey towards identifying and finding their job of choice. Hugely rewarding for me. Absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. Mike, I don't know if I lost you.
Oh, sorry. I think I muted myself. My bad. If you could give some advice to maybe some parents or someone who's blind, who's just kind of getting started on this journey of living this life of blindness, and maybe someone who's living in a small state, or maybe they don't know where to begin. Maybe they're representing their child and like, how do I get more for my kid to do? Can you give them some advice? We talk about it all the time in our meetings, but hearing it from somebody who's lived it, and it's not me, it's not coming from me. Sometimes I feel like a parent talking to people, but someone who's in the business, who's got children, who knows what it means to advocate, not just for the kids, but for yourself. Where do you start? And what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get on this road and trying to figure out what to do?
It's everybody's story is different, right? And so there is no one size fits all. There's no one answer fits all. And so the hardest part is just picking up the phone or having that first meeting. And honestly, is realizing that first phone call or that first meeting is not the last meeting, right? My son's biggest advocate is not me, it's his mother, right? Who will not let it go, right? Until it is done, it is not done. Until you have that piece of technology in his hands, it is not done. It took us 7 months in my son's kindergarten class to get his CCTV in place. Why it took so long, I have no idea, but you can't assume just because somebody agreed to do something on the first day of school or whatever that it's going to get done. It takes constant follow-up and advocacy. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Doesn't mean you need to be a bully about it. Doesn't mean you need to file lawsuits and do all that stuff. You can do it in a really nice and approachable way. You get a lot more done, I think with honey, is that the right word? Than you do with a stick. I'll mix a bunch of metaphors together. Mm-hmm. And if you need to go there, you need to go there. I totally understand that. But building relationships and doing the follow-up and the constant work and advocacy it's a lifelong journey.
I think a lot of things that we do here at IFB, and I've been a part of, is that we're not so much interested in who gets credit. We just want to see the end result benefit the user, the blind person in particular, who's trying to get a job or trying to move up in their career. And I think that's the important thing that we all want to see. It's great when something like that happens, but you're making a great point. I think you have to be a solution oriented person, not a problem person. They know that someone who comes into a school system who's blind is going to be a problem. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just say that it's problematic. That's going to create challenges for teachers who may or may not understand how to deal with a child. So I know you and your wife, as you made reference to, who's the go-getter and make sure it gets done. I'm sure you've had those experiences with teachers. What could you say to someone who needs to have a conversation with a teacher about how you deal with a situation like that? Do you have a conversation with the teachers yourself? How do you approach that? Give me a couple of pointers and maybe a couple of words of advice to someone who may be facing that in their school system.
There's a few things. As your child gets older, teaching them self-advocacy, to speak up is also critical, right? You can't do it all for them. You're not going to be able to do it for them when they're 24.
Right.
So start young. If you can't see the board, tell the teacher right now, right? There's no time like the minute. Obviously, that takes time, and my son's just getting better at it. The other good thing is teachers are way more accessible today than they were back when I was growing up. All of our teachers are extraordinarily responsive to emails, texts, whatever platform that the school's using with all this online learning tools that are out there and available now. So I always work with examples, right? Good or bad, this happened today. You were writing with a purple pen on the chalkboard. My son can't see purple. Do I need to talk to his vision teacher about getting you some black markers, right? And provide the solution as a part of the conversation. You're doing an exercise on how to accurately count money today, and you're putting pictures up on the board of money. Our son can't see the difference between the pictures. Can I have you bring in some real money, quarters and nickels and whatever that
Right.
he can touch and feel and play with? Because enlarging it isn't going to help, right? So that would be my advice, if it makes sense.
Visiting with Danny Kelly, just a couple more questions, but this has been really informative. You know as well as I do that anything is possible when it comes to learning. We both have gotten degrees. You've gotten multiple degrees in college and have been so successful doing anything you want to do. Where do you see, and I've heard you talk about it, but I want to ask you to say it here so that folks will hear who are listening to this. Where do you think the jobs are for the blind folks, and where do you think we're headed as in the future, moving ahead, say 5-10 years from now? Where do you think the job market's going to be most beneficial as it relates to someone who is blind or visually impaired?
Ooh, that's a big question. Our focus is to be able to build that platform for success so that people who are blind can go out and identify their jobs of choice, right? And be successful in that career. There is always going to be a need for relationship-driven activities, whether that's face-to-face or over the phone or over text messages. There's always going to be a person behind that algorithm that somebody's going to want to talk to. And that is at multiple levels of development, beyond just a customer service agent. With the advent of the metaverse and all the other stuff that they're talking about today, the technology, coding, different types of technology careers. There's only going to be more and more of those type positions available. But there's also always going to be positions out there and available for a variety of work for people who are blind, who maybe have other multiple disabilities, in packaging and assembly and other types of manufacturing programs, because basically we're humans, we're always going to need stuff, right?
Sure.
So that isn't going away either. So there's no one answer here that says go out and get your law degree
Right.
and you will be successful in life. I mean, I got a public policy degree in college because I was interested in it, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm actually using it. I never actually thought I would use it.
It's amazing
to Congress.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how many people get a degree in something and they don't use it in their professional career. And I'm one of those. I do use mine some because I'm a communication major, but I minored in English. But I'm doing assistive technology, and most people who do my work go for teaching degrees because I'm, a lot of what I do is a teacher. But I believe communication is so critical in the teaching business. And if you don't know how to communicate, it's going to be hard to teach. But I imagine, you're a policy person, and if you didn't know anything about it, it'd be hard to make policy now, wouldn't it? So.
Yeah, I mean, what it's teaching you, and the value of education, and getting your education, finishing high school,
Right.
finishing college, and even at age whatever, 50. Again, I told you I had to go put my big boy pants on earlier and continue to learn technology. It's all about, when you're in college, it's about learning how to learn and get curious, right? Because learning is a lifelong event now. It's not something you do once and then never go back to school again. For the next 40 years of your career on your one job, right? So I've had 3 distinct jobs with 3 different companies and 3 different distinct careers in that process. And there's been learning along the way at all of them, whether that be different professional seminars or formalize my MBA or executive coaching and training. It's an essential part of what we do, and you need to make time for it no matter what.
Well, you learn every day on the job, I think, especially in mine. And I know yours as well. You learn because you're dealing with people
Sure.
and changing things. Policies change, rules change. There's just difference in dynamics, and even the people you work with change. And so for that alone, you got to figure out the best way to communicate with them. And that's the one thing I love about this work, is that you never stop learning. There's always something new, and there's always something more challenging. And of course, then it's getting people to believe you that it's better. And so you might want to upgrade, to the newest version of this or that. And Danny, I tell you, as we wrap this up, and I want to thank you again for coming on. It's a wonderful story. I think that one of the take homes is, and I'll let you kind of comment on this as we finish here, but you can never, technology is your friend if you're blind, and that kind of opens the door for all of the other stuff. Your confidence level will improve, your ability to work in the main sector. It does have a lot to do with what you can use and all the tools that you can use. And as you have said earlier in your comments, you learned Braille at the age of 5. You had, computer access when you were young. Your son's doing that. You're making sure that he has what he needs at school in order to learn. And it's very important. And I think you would have to agree that that's something that we all should try our best to keep in our minds as whether we're professionals or in school, utilize our ability to use the technology that's here. And I'll let you give me a few final words on that as we get ready to wrap this up here.
Yeah, I would definitely say learn it before you need it. That's a critical part of what we do every day. And then I think there's been mixed points of view on this, but just for job seekers out there in using technology and adaptations and accommodations, I have always been upfront about that in every job interview, even the first one that I went out and got with this small business recruiting firm. Is I took my type and speak at the time and my Brailler and whatever to the job interview because he was gonna have no idea. Yeah, I'm sure he's never met a person who's blind before at a job, and I wanted him to be able to ask questions about it and how you do this and how you do that. People have tried to hide their blindness, whatever. It's my personal opinion is it's not worth it. Have an open discussion about how you're going to be able to do that job despite your blindness and what tools are out there and available to open their eyes to what's possible.
Interesting observation. Interesting observation. I know we've had various opinions about that. So it's interesting that you bring that up because a lot of folks don't want it to become about the technology. They want to make it about them and what they can do, somewhat, not so much about how they do it. But I think it's important that people do understand that they have the ability, and here's how, and here's proof. That's that's
yeah. Again, this is an opinion of one, right?
Yeah.
But putting yourself in an interviewer's shoes, what are they thinking about, right?
Sure.
They have 100 applicants on their desk. They're interviewing 10 people today. Every one of them's qualified for the position. So they're thinking about you. And I know he said he's qualified, but how, right? And I know this gets into they're not allowed to ask these questions because it's discrimination and then what blah blah blah. Everybody's thinking it.
Yeah.
So get it out on the table yourself, right?
Yeah. If you make them comfortable with it, then they'll be more comfortable moving forward. And some people are, and some people aren't, though. I mean, sometimes you almost have to feel out the interview sometimes to figure out where that goes. Do you think, and this just you making that statement kind of prodded me to ask this question. Do you think some of the automated job search things like ZipRecruiter, and now we got to mention all of them because I've mentioned one, right? But
Monster.com.
Yeah, Indeed. Yeah, those things like that. They really have automated a lot of this stuff. Does that help or does that hurt someone who's blind, or do you think it makes a difference at all?
It all comes down to personal relationships in my mind. I don't know if I don't believe the statistics that these big companies publish or whatever. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Anyway, the long story short is it comes down to your personal network. Who do you know? And the more people you know and you have in your corner, the likelier it is you're going to get a position rather than just finding one out there on the internet.
And one thing I would say also, and from a business to business standpoint that you and I have been involved in, one of the things I try to do is develop a trust with the person I'm working with. If they believe you and you can get them to trust you, and of course you do that by doing what you say you're going to do, delivering the business and the results they want. But if they can trust you, you got more opportunities to, in our case, put more people to work. Because we can deliver people who have the qualifications. We can offer the tech support and they will trust us to work in their systems, work in their environments. And I think that's incredibly critical. But also, I think developing a rapport when you're looking for a job, if you're listening to this, one of the biggest things you can do is be trustworthy and if you say you're going to do it, do it. Don't be someone who can't be trusted, because that's incredibly important. You'll get a long way with that, for sure. Danny, I really appreciate your time as always. Your story is remarkable. We have a lot of great stories, and we're going to feature more, and have already on this channel. You're one of those that I wanted to share with folks. I think what you do is tremendous. I've enjoyed working with you at IFB, and hope for many more years. I start my 10th year with the organization next year.
Hey, congratulations.
I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
But I know we've got a lot of work ahead of us next year, as many organizations do. But we appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us and sharing a little bit about what you do, who you are, and how you get things done as a blind person using technology and the resources that you have. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thrilled to be a part of it today, and look forward to being a continued listener and subscriber.
We appreciate that. Danny Kelly's been our guest, folks, and we hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. If you know of someone who you think we could talk to, please inform us of that. Leave a comment in our YouTube channel. Comment on the video. Let us know that you're listening to us. You can also reach us via email at athotcorner@gmail.com. That's athotcorner@gmail.com. If you have somebody you think we ought to spotlight, we'd love to hear about it. Also, if you want us to talk about something, maybe you're having an issue with a particular device, or would like for us to review a device for you, we'd like to know about that as well. You can send email to the aforementioned email. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening to our broadcast. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we will see you soon as we continue our Hot Corner Spotlight. This is Mike Moat. Thank you for joining us.
For more great content, please like, subscribe, and share. You may also email the show at athotcorner@gmail.com. That's athotcorner@gmail.com.